Hello, my name is Sarah Rosell, and I am your son or daughter's teacher for chemistry at Rochester High School. I have been teaching at Rochester since 2008. A little bit about myself. I live with my husband, Jason, and our two little ones, Addison, who is in middle school, and Everett in elementary school. We also have a dog, that's Watson, that you see snoozing there on your screen. In our spare time, we like to just kind of hang out with each other. We love to go camping. We like to read. We play a lot of games as a family. We definitely spend a lot of time at Michigan State. We are Spartans through and through, so we spend some time there. And we just really enjoy being together and doing whatever we can as a family. So, a little bit about our course. In chemistry and in the state of Michigan, we use what are called the NGSS standards, and there's three strands to the NGSS science standards. There's the science and engineering practices, the disciplinary core ideas, which is really your content piece, and then these cross-cutting concepts, themes that you see appearing in all areas of science, whether that's life science or physical science or earth science. So it is our goal to help our students weave these three strands or these three areas together. And that's how we kind of look at our course. We are using our curriculum this year that it requires us to kind of work through this roadmap. So we start with presenting students with a phenomenon or an experience. And then as a class, we come up with different questions that we have that might help us figure out an explanation for this phenomenon. And then we use these different routines to hopefully get us to the point where a lot of our questions are answered. And throughout our answering of questions, we'll do little investigations that might involve just analyzing certain data. It might involve us doing labs to get there. It's going to involve a lot of student conversation to help us put the pieces together, as well as a lot of input from various sources. And so this is a very complex way of thinking, but it's a very real world way of thinking. And it's really important as we have started to develop our NGSS curriculum that we anchor our learning in one phenomenon that we're trying to figure out to give students a context for why we're learning what we're learning. It's also really important that we are using their questions to help us drive the learning, so that way it seems relevant to them and it's important to them in their own processing. In chemistry, we also use standards-based grading, and the importance of standards-based grading is that students are really in charge of their grade. In traditional grading, you see students will take an assessment, they get a grade, it's done, it's over with, and then they move on. In standards-based grading, students can retake certain assessments because learning is really messy. There are times where you catch on to something really quick and it comes really easy to you. There are other times where certain concepts are very hard for you or more challenging, and it takes you a lot longer to catch on. And so for this reason, we really believe standards-based grading is the best way to assess the learning of our students, and it really helps us ensure that the grade is a reflection of their knowledge, not just their effort. Obviously, their effort is really, really, really important to get to that piece, that knowledge piece. But in the end, we want to make sure that their course grade is based on those three strands of the science and engineering practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and the disciplinary core ideas. It's really important as we go through this way of learning that students are present, because we do a lot of in-class discussion and a lot of our learning happens during the class period. You're not going to see your students come home with a ton of homework for our class because a lot of it happens during the class period that we are provided with. So attendance is really, really, really important for that. On the standards-based grading scale, it goes basically from a 0 to a 4, and you can see those levels on your screen. A 0 is actually very hard for students to get because a 0 basically means the student has no idea and is not displaying any ability of understanding of whatever that concept or that standard is. It goes up to 4, which is a mastery level, where we kind of tell students it's kind of as if you could teach this to others. So if you have all of the details and everything is worked out, you would receive a score of 4, which is mastery. Please understand that when we are grading quizzes, we don't just go with whole numbers. You will see decimal places. These are kind of like our main standards that we stick to, our main levels that we stick to. However, you will see grades that fall in between. So you can find 3.5s and 2.5s, so on and so forth, depending on the assessment and depending on the answer that was provided. This is our grading scale for standards-based grading. This is the same grading scale that was used for standards-based grading in biology if your student has already taken that and experienced the standards-based grading system. So this is the standards-based grading scale that we use that you'll see show up on Parent View. As far as assessments, there's going to be two types of assessments. There are formative quizzes. Quizzes are taken approximately every week. It just kind of depends on what we're doing in class. Those quizzes can be retaken. We allow students to help improve their grades by retaking these formative quizzes. These are closed note quizzes, and these are things that you are going to demonstrate your knowledge. And if you didn't do as well as you thought you should have, or you feel like you can learn a little bit more and improve in your achievement, then you can retake it to show your improvement in learning and understanding. There's also going to be transfer tasks. Transfer tasks will be completed in class. Transfer tasks are kind of like bigger tasks. They can be open note. They can be done in group, or parts of them might be done in group. And when I say done in group, it's not that there's a group grade. Every grade will be individual, but you may be able to work with other people while you're forming your final product. And in these transfer tasks, there will be times for peer edits or peer reviewing. There's times for asking the teacher for answers or asking the teacher for assistance. So for that reason, these assessments cannot be retaken. They will show up as different categories on the Parent View screen. To retake formative quizzes, there's a couple of requirements. First of all, students will need to correct the original quizzes before they can retake anything. We do allow for corrections to take place in class. Retakes are not going to be offered the last week of the marking period, so that gives us time to make sure that we can get everything graded in time for report cards being due. And retakes are provided 1 week after the original quiz is given. It is important that students do all of their homework before the original quiz. If they don't have all of their homework in before taking the original quiz, they will not be able to retake that particular formative quiz. Every time they do a retake, the new score replaces the old score, regardless if it's higher, lower, or the same as the previous score. We do a lot of our stuff in class, as I said before, which is why attendance is of utmost importance. We are going to have a lot of in-class assignments, in-class activities. We'll do exit slips, which are just checks for understanding as we go. There may be home learning that is an extension of the classwork. That means there might be something we started in class and needs to be figured out or finished up at home. Additionally, there might be an additional investigation or a small piece of research that needs to be done at home outside of the classroom, and students would come back the next day to bring that to the team or bring that to our class community for discussion. It is also really important that students focus on their collaboration skills. We do a lot of group work on a small scale as well as class discussions. And so that will be incorporated into their assessments and their grades as well. So really focusing on that collaboration during class is important too. Ways for your student to be successful. It is vitally important that they participate. It's totally okay to be wrong. If they were never wrong, then there'd be no point for them to take the class. Make sure that they're completing all assignments and practice opportunities. It sometimes is hard because they look at it as the assignment doesn't count towards their grade. So why would they finish it or why would they complete it? But as a teacher, we are very cognizant of the assignments that we give, ensuring that those assignments are going to help them prepare for the assessments. So it's important that they do the assignments and make sure they get them done in time, so that way they can be prepared for the assessments. Asking questions is super important to make sure we can clarify misunderstandings and there's no need to cram at quiz time. They should be keeping themselves organized with a binder for our class. We are going to be getting a whole bunch of papers because we're essentially creating our own textbook. And so a binder is the best way to keep organized with the amount of papers that we're going to be getting. They can review nightly, so there's less cramming at any quiz time or at assessment time. And review nightly doesn't necessarily mean just sit and read your notes. It could be just having a conversation with you or anyone in the house about what we did in class and where we're at in our investigation. If they're really struggling and they need to meet with me, I'm more than happy to take some time to meet with them to talk about anything. This could be before school, after school. It can be sometimes accomplished during passing time. We also can make use of our advisory time that we have. So any of those options are feasible. And obviously using student view to keep up with in class or parent view from your perspective. One of the things that I really want to focus on is helping them to learn to advocate for their education. And this is where the part of students making sure that they schedule a time to meet with me if they're struggling becomes a really big piece. So making sure that you can help them say, hey, I think you might need to meet with Miss Rosell. Go ahead and talk with her, find a time to meet, and then we can talk about it afterwards. But really getting them to the point where they can advocate for their own education, talking to them about lessons learned from mistakes and things that they consider to be failures. It is really important that they understand that if you don't try anything new, then you're never going to grow and learn and move forward. And trying new things is uncomfortable, and trying new things always doesn't go 100% as planned at the beginning, but we have to learn from it and move forward. It's really important that students can focus on what they're learning in addition to their grade. So it's not just the letter grade that shows up, but also the content and the experience that they're getting that's important. And as I said before, one of the best ways for students to study and really get to understand our class material is engaging in discussion. So whether that's a discussion with you, whether that's a discussion with anybody else in their household, but people outside of our class, so people that don't know what we're doing in class, if they can engage in a discussion about what we are doing in class, that really helps them see if they understand or not. I'm really looking forward to a fantastic year in our classroom, and I'm really excited to get to know your students better. Thank you.